There is a silent war happening inside every woman. It does not roar like the chaos of armies, nor is it seen in the streets, but it is fierce, it is daily, and it is entirely internal. This war is not with the world. It is not with men. It is not with society. It is with the self. What if I told you that the greatest form of strength you could ever develop is not loud, but quiet, that it is not about how much you can say, but how wisely you can choose when to be silent, that it is not how much emotion you can show, but how much emotion you can hold, refine, and elevate. A woman who controls her mouth, her mood, her money, and her mind, she is not just powerful, she is unshakable. Words are invisible weapons. Once released, they cannot return. A single sentence spoken in anger can ruin years of love. A careless word can wound deeper than any blade. But the woman who learns to hold her tongue in moments of fire, she is already a warrior, not because she fears conflict, but because she respects the calm more than the drama. The discipline of the mouth is not silence, it is awareness, and awareness is strength. Then comes the mood. Emotions rise like tides. They come fast, they come without warning, and they often come heavy. But emotions are not commands. You do not have to obey them. You do not have to react. Feelings are just visitors. You are the home. The woman who understands this becomes the master of her space. She does not yell when frustrated. She does not collapse when sad. She breathes. She observes. And she chooses. This is not suppression. This is self-leadership. Now money. Yes, it seems far from the spiritual or emotional realm, but it is deeply connected. How a woman treats her money is how she treats herself. Is it spent to impress others or to invest in growth? Is it used to escape or to build? Money can either be a chain or a tool. It is not about how much you earn. It is about how consciously you use it. A woman who knows how to control her spending is not being stingy. She is protecting her freedom. Freedom lives in self-discipline. And finally, the mind. The battlefield of the future is not out there. It is inside your own head. Every distraction that steals your focus is a thief of your destiny. Every toxic thought you entertain is a crack in your armor. The woman who controls her mind becomes unstoppable, because when the mind is still, it sees clearly. When it is focused, it moves mountains. You do not have to fight every thought. You only have to stop feeding the ones that weaken you. So you ask, where does real power come from? It comes from the woman who is not reactive but responsive, not loud but clear, not controlling others but mastering herself. She is not always the one you see in front, but she is the one you remember forever. Let the world keep rushing. You stand still inside. Let others waste words. You speak with fire and precision. Let moods come and go. You remain rooted. Let the mind wander. You guide it back again and again. Because in the end, the woman who commands her mouth, her mood, her money, and her mind does not chase peace. She becomes it. And no one can take that away. There was once a woman who could crush the atmosphere in a room with just a few words. She didn't scream, she didn't curse. But her words were sharp, rushed, reactive. She'd speak when angry, speak when afraid, speak when she didn't know what she was truly feeling. And after every storm of her own making, she would sit alone, heart pounding, wondering, why did I say that? Why did I have to react? But the damage would already be done. What she hadn't yet learned was this. Power is not always loud. Power is not in the volume of your voice or the number of your words. Power lies in the pause between thought and speech. True power is choosing silence over chaos, reflection over reaction. You see, the mouth is not just for expression. It is a gate between what you feel and what you release into the world. And gates must be guarded, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because words once spoken do not dissolve. They imprint, they ripple, they scar, or they heal. You don't get to recall a sentence once it leaves your lips. And sometimes one impulsive phrase spoken in anger can destroy what years of love, trust, and patience have built. Think about it. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment, only to regret it the very next second? That one word too many. That sentence too harsh. That tone too sharp, and the look on the other person's face. Hurt, confused, withdrawn. In that moment you realize the truth. You were not in control of your mouth. Your emotion was. Your fear was. Your ego was. There's a saying that goes, your tongue can give life or death. It's not poetry, it's reality. The words we use can either raise someone up or make them feel smaller than they ever imagined possible. But even more dangerously, they can also shape the way we see ourselves. When a woman constantly speaks with bitterness, judgment, or self-hate, her mind starts to believe it. Her world starts to reflect it. Every sentence becomes a seed. And if the mouth keeps planting seeds of doubt, chaos, or complaint, what harvest will she reap? But now picture a different woman. She is not silent because she is weak. She is silent because she is thinking. Her pauses are deliberate. She listens not to reply, but to understand. She speaks not to fill space, but to bring clarity. Her words are few, but when she speaks, you listen. Because when she opens her mouth, she does not scatter. She pierces. She directs. She creates. This woman has learned the art of the tongue. She knows when to speak love, when to speak truth, and when to simply breathe. She's not passive. No, she's precise. She does not waste words on gossip. She does not feed fires with fuel. She does not give her critics the satisfaction of reaction. Instead, she saves her energy for what matters. She guards her speech like a warrior guards her blade, sharp, clean, and only drawn with purpose. This control did not come overnight. No, it came from pain, from burning bridges she didn't mean to burn, from words she wanted to take back, from apologies that never erased the damage. It came from experience, from slowly realizing that controlling the mouth is not suppression, it is elevation. When a woman learns to master her mouth, she rises, because the chaos outside no longer dictates the words she speaks. She becomes centered. She becomes respected. She becomes respected. She becomes unforgettable. Let me tell you a story. There was a young girl who grew up in a house where shouting was normal. Every disagreement turned into a battlefield of voices. She learned early that to be heard, she had to yell louder. To win, she had to speak faster. She entered adulthood with the same armor, sharp tongue, fast temper, loud defense. But then, life humbled her. A failed relationship that ended not because of lack of love, but because of lack of peace. Friendships lost because of words spoken too soon. Opportunities missed because her emotions always spoke first. And one day, sitting alone in silence after another fallout, she finally asked herself, what if silence is stronger than noise? What if I don't need to defend everything? What if listening is more powerful than speaking? And so began her transformation. The next time she felt anger rising, she bit her tongue. Not because she was afraid, but because she chose awareness. The next time someone provoked her, she smiled and walked away. Not because she was weak, but because she had learned that reaction is a gift, and not everyone deserves it. She began to speak with intention, not impulse. Her words became fewer, but her presence became louder. People noticed. They listened more when she spoke. They respected her boundaries. They came to her not for drama, but for wisdom. She had shifted from being the storm to becoming the calm in the middle of it. All because she learned to control her mouth. So to every woman listening, you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to speak just to fill the silence. Let your words carry meaning. Let them be the echo of your calm, not the scream of your chaos. Because when you control your mouth, you do not just gain the respect of others. You gain peace. You gain clarity. You gain power. Speak less. Mean more. Let your silence teach. Let your words heal. The world does not need more noise. It needs your presence. And your true presence begins when you take control of the most powerful weapon you carry, your voice. There is a storm that often brews inside you, not because the world is against you, but because your emotions rise like wild tides, demanding to be seen, to be felt, to be obeyed. But here's a secret that many never learn. Emotions are not commands. They are signals. And if you let them rule without understanding, they will turn you into a puppet pulled by invisible strings. A woman's mood, when left unchecked, is like a sea without a compass. It can carry her from laughter to tears in the span of a few minutes. One word from someone else, one unexpected moment, and everything shifts inside. The heart beats faster, the mind starts racing, and suddenly the whole world feels heavier. But here's the truth. You are not your mood. You are the sky above it, and you must learn to rise above the clouds when the storm comes. There was once a woman who couldn't predict her own reactions. A simple question from her partner could spark irritation. A minor inconvenience could ruin her day. She told herself she was just sensitive, emotional, but deep down, she felt like a prisoner inside her own skin, as if she had no control over how she showed up in the world. Her emotions ran the show. They decided how she treated others, how she spoke to herself, how she felt about. But something happened. It wasn't dramatic. There was no grand awakening, just a single moment of stillness after a fight she regretted. Again, she stood there, exhausted by her own volatility, and thought, I can't live like this anymore. That was the beginning. The beginning of emotional awareness. Not emotional perfection, but awareness. Mood is like weather. It changes, it moves. But if you let the weather decide whether or not you get out of bed, go to work, smile at your loved ones, you become a slave to forces outside of your control. Real power begins the moment you stop giving your emotions the final vote. You don't ignore them, you observe them. You don't suppress them, you sit with them. But most importantly, you choose your response, not your reaction. Imagine this, you wake up and feel low. The kind of low that makes you want to stay in bed, cancel your plans and withdraw. But instead of giving in, you ask yourself, is this sadness or is it just fatigue? Is this frustration? Or do I simply need silence? You breathe, you ground yourself. You do one kind thing for your body, maybe drink water, take a walk, stretch. Then you do one kind thing for your mind, maybe write, maybe pray, maybe just be still. Slowly, the mood lifts, not because you forced it to, but because you refuse to fuel it. That is what emotional regulation looks like. It is not cold. It is not robotic. It is sacred discipline. It is the art of making space between stimulus and response. A woman who learns this is no longer tossed around by every wave. She becomes the anchor. And when others around her lose themselves in their feelings, she becomes the lighthouse. She doesn't shout over the storm, she shines through it, because she has mastered the art of staying centered when everything else sways. This woman does not pretend to be fine when she's not. She doesn't fake smiles or bury her tears. No, she feels everything, deeply, fully, but she does not let those feelings dictate her words, her tone, her decisions. She feels the fire but doesn't burn the house down. That is the balance. That is the beauty of emotional mastery. Now think of the relationships you cherish. How many arguments started from a momentary mood? How many apologies had to be made for a tone, a look, a reaction that came from a passing emotion? And how many of those reactions could have been avoided if you simply paused, breathed, and asked, what am I really feeling? And does this deserve a response or just a release? A woman's power lies not in pretending to be unaffected. It lies in being fully aware of her inner landscape while still choosing wisdom over impulse. To wake up with anxiety but still show up for life. To feel anger and yet respond with clarity. To carry pain but not let it poison her speech. That is a kind of elegance that cannot be taught. It must be cultivated. The world teaches you to be expressive, emotional, bold, but it rarely teaches you when to hold back, when to observe, when to remain still. And yet, the stillness is where your true strength is born. The woman who can sit with her feelings without exploding, she is a force. She is not emotionless. She is emotionally intelligent. So when the day comes, and it will, when you feel like screaming, when you feel misunderstood, unseen, disrespected, remember this, the reaction that rises first is not the one that will serve you best. Wait. Pause. Reflect. Choose. You are not born to be a volcano of reactions. You are born to be a mountain, strong, unmoved, grounded. Let others chase drama. Let others lose themselves in their temporary moods. You choose stillness. You choose to lead yourself first. Because when you learn to master your mode, you no longer live in emotional chains. You move from chaos to clarity, from survival to serenity. And in that serenity, you find your voice. You find your worth. You find your power. There was once a girl who believed that freedom meant doing what she wanted, when she wanted, without asking questions. She spent freely, dressed extravagantly, gave without limits, and shopped not from need, but from impulse. It made her feel alive, powerful even. For a moment, buying something gave her a sense of control, of celebration, of escape. But over time, that temporary rush began to fade, and what was left behind was something she hadn't expected. Anxiety, regret, and a quiet, shameful emptiness. You see, money is not just currency. For a woman, money is energy. It is an extension of how she values herself. How she uses it often mirrors how she sees her worth. A woman who does not respect her money is often the same woman who doubts her value. Because if you believe you are enough, you don't need to keep buying things to feel full. And if you believe in your future, you don't sabotage it in the present for a moment of satisfaction. No one talks about this often, but how a woman manages her money is one of the clearest reflections of her self-control. You can tell how grounded she is, not by what she wears, but by what she says. Not by how much she spends, but by how wisely she chooses to invest into herself, into her growth, into her vision. There is a kind of discipline that comes with financial awareness that radiates into every other area of life. It's not just about numbers, it's about energy. When a woman learns to say no to things that drain her wallet, she also learns to say no to people who drain her spirit. She understands that control is not deprivation, it is liberation. Because every time you choose intention over impulse, you are declaring that your future matters more than your momentary craving. And let us be honest, many women are not taught this. They are taught to spend on appearance, to decorate their worth with things, to impress instead of invest. They are told they need this product, this look, this accessory to feel beautiful, accepted, worthy. And so they chase comfort in material things. But what they don't realize is that financial chaos eventually bleeds into emotional chaos. Debt becomes stress, overspending becomes guilt, shopping becomes a way to silence pain. But there is another way. Imagine a woman who chooses to be aware. She knows where every coin goes, not because she's obsessed, but because she's intentional. Her spending doesn't scream for validation. It speaks of clarity. She doesn't buy things to escape herself. She invests in things that bring her closer to the woman she's becoming. This woman is not flashy, but she's fierce. Her bank account is not the measure of her success, but her control over it is a reflection of her inner order. She doesn't need others to see what she wears to know what she's worth. Her stability speaks louder than any handbag ever could. She walks with quiet confidence, not because of what she owns, but because she owns herself. There's something deeply magnetic about a woman who knows what she wants and saves for it, who builds instead of borrows, who says, not now, because she has a bigger vision than just this week. This woman has long-term love for herself. And long-term love always requires discipline. And it's not just about budgeting or spreadsheets, it's about honoring your energy. Every time you spend money, you are trading pieces of your life for it. Hours worked, stress endured, energy spent. So ask yourself, is this purchase worth that trade? That question alone has the power to change lives. Now picture this. A woman gets paid. She feels the temptation to buy something beautiful, something expensive, something to remind her that she deserves it. But instead of giving in, she pauses, she smiles. She reminds herself that true reward comes not from spending, but from building. She takes a portion and puts it aside for her dreams, another portion for her learning, another for her joy. And what she is left with is not just money, but pride. Real, rooted pride. Not in what she has, but in who she is becoming. She is not at the mercy of sales. She is not hunting validation through objects. She is creating space, creating strength, creating choice. And that kind of woman is dangerous, in the best way. Because when you take control of your money, you're not just protecting your bank account, you're protecting your mental peace, your emotional clarity, your future. You're saying to the world, I am not desperate, I am disciplined. I am not impulsive. I am intentional. I do not spend to fill a void, I build to create a legacy. And here's the beauty of it. Money becomes your ally, not your enemy. You no longer fear looking at your account. You no longer feel guilt after a purchase. You no longer sabotage your stability. Instead, you start to trust yourself. You feel powerful, not because of what's in your wallet, but because of what's in your will. So, to every woman who feels like money has always been a source of stress, confusion, or even shame, this is your moment. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. You don't need to earn more to feel rich. You need to learn how to honor what you already have. Start small. Track your spending, not with fear, but with curiosity. Ask yourself with every purchase, does this support the woman I am becoming? If not, let it go. You are not denying yourself joy. You are directing it towards something greater. Because the truth is, when you control your money, you don't just gain numbers, you gain freedom. And a financially free woman is not only more stable, but more dangerous. Because she is harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to control. And the world has never feared a woman with money. It fears a woman who knows how to manage it, with wisdom, grace, and quiet power. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that her mind is no longer a safe place. It has become loud, chaotic, and full of voices that don't belong to her. Voices from the past, telling her she's not enough. Voices from society, pressuring her to be everything all at once. Voices from her own fears, whispering doubts into her dreams. She lies awake at night, not because the world outside is noisy, but because the noise inside refuses to let her rest. That is the moment she must rise, not physically but mentally. Because until she learns to take command of her mind, nothing else will ever truly belong to her. Not her time, not her peace, not even her identity. The mind is not your enemy, but it can become one when left untrained. Like a wild horse, it will run in every direction unless you learn to guide it. And many women spend their lives being dragged behind it, instead of learning to ride it with intention and clarity. They chase one thought after another. They relive old wounds. They worry about problems that haven't even arrived. And in that chaos, they lose the most precious resource they have. Where your focus goes, your life follows. If you are constantly focused on what others think of you, your life will revolve around performance and approval. If your thoughts are tied to regret, you'll live in the past, unable to see the opportunities of the present. If your mind is consumed with comparison, you'll forever feel like you're falling short, even when you're making progress. But what happens when a woman decides to reclaim her mind? There was once a woman who was always overwhelmed. Not because her life was more difficult than others, but because her thoughts were scattered. She would wake up and check her phone before she even checked in with herself. She would overthink every conversation, every decision, every mistake. Her dreams felt foggy. Her goals were always shifting. She couldn't concentrate, couldn't rest, couldn't breathe deeply. Her mind had become a battlefield, and she was losing the war. One day she realized, it's not the world that's exhausting me. It's my own mind. And so she began the work. Not by trying to control every thought, because that's impossible, but by learning to choose which thoughts to feed, because not every thought deserves your attention. Not every worry deserves your energy. The human mind produces thousands of thoughts a day, but only a few of them are truly yours. The rest are echoes of fear, of the past, of other people's expectations. She began to meditate, not to escape, but to observe. She began to journal, not to fix, but to understand. She began to ask herself powerful questions. Is this thought helpful? Is this fear true? Is this voice inside mine or someone else's? And slowly, something shifted. Her thoughts didn't stop, but her reaction to them changed. The mind still whispered doubts, but she no longer followed them. The fear still arose, but she no longer bowed to it. She became a witness, a guide, a leader of her own inner world. That is what it means to command the mind. You do not need to eliminate all negative thoughts. You simply need to stop letting them run your life. You do not need to be perfectly focused every moment, but you must know how to return when your mind wanders. The power lies not in always being still, but in always coming back to stillness. And when you do, a kind of magic begins to unfold. You start seeing through distractions. You stop reacting to every trigger. You begin to recognize patterns that once ruled you. And more than anything, you begin to choose your life, instead of drifting through it. A woman who has mastered her mind becomes unstoppable. Because while others are lost in drama, she is building. While others are overthinking, she is acting. While others are busy pleasing, she is focused on growing. Her clarity becomes a shield, her focus becomes a weapon, her peace becomes unshakable. She may not speak loudly, but her presence is felt. She may not show her every move, but her results speak for her. She may not control the world, but she has mastered the one thing that truly matters: herself. This kind of mental power doesn't come from privilege or education. It comes from daily choices, from the decision to sit with yourself even when it's uncomfortable, to challenge your thoughts even when they feel familiar, to stop escaping your mind and start reshaping it. Let others scroll endlessly. You breathe and be still. Let others rush. You walk with intention. Let others consume noise. You create clarity. Because the woman who leads her mind leads her life. And when you lead your life, no one else gets to. Not fear, not doubt, not pressure, not society, not the past. So the next time your thoughts begin to spiral, the next time your mind tries to pull you in every direction, remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the space in which they appear. And you have the power to choose which ones stay and which ones go. That is freedom. That is power. That is peace. And that is the kind of woman the world cannot shake. You were never meant to live scattered. You were never born to be ruled by your reactions, your moods, your impulses, or your fears. There is a fire inside you that was never meant to flicker in chaos. It was meant to blaze in clarity, purpose, and power. The world has tried to distract you, divide you, soften your edge. It told you to be quiet when you should have spoken, to shrink when you should have stood tall, to please when you should have protected your peace. But here you are, right now, standing on the edge of becoming something unforgettable. The power you seek outside of you is already within you. You do not need to scream to be heard. You just need to speak with truth. You do not need to explode to be strong. You only need to respond with wisdom. You do not need more things to feel worthy. You simply need to remember who you are when the noise fades, when the lights are off, and the world is silent. That's where your real power lives. That's where the woman you were always meant to be is waiting. Control your mouth, because every word you speak is either a weapon or a wing. It can cut or it can lift. And once it leaves your lips, it does not belong to you. It belongs to the world. Speak not to impress, but to impact. Speak not to win arguments, but to win hearts. Sometimes your silence will be your sharpest sword. Sometimes your stillness will scream louder than any shout. Don't waste your breath trying to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Move in silence. Let your results do the talking. As the saying goes, the tiger doesn't have to announce itself. It just moves. Control your mood, because it is the difference between reaction and response, between survival and strength. Emotions are messengers, not masters. Feel them, but do not bow to them. Learn to pause in your pain, to breathe in your frustration, to ground yourself when the storm rises. The woman who knows how to manage her emotions in chaos is the most dangerous kind. He who conquers others is strong, said Lao Tzu, but he who conquers himself is mighty. And a mighty woman does not need to control the room. She controls herself. That is what people will remember. Control your money, because it reflects how you see yourself, not how much you have, but how you handle it. Money doesn't change you, it reveals you. Build before you buy. Save before you spend. Invest in growth, not approval. The world has enough women chasing shiny things. It needs more women building solid things. You are not created to impress strangers. You are created to secure your legacy. Let your spending reflect your self-respect. And remember, wealth is not about having a lot of money. It is about having a lot of options. Discipline now, so you never have to beg for freedom later. Control your mind, because the thoughts you allow are the seeds you plant, and your life is nothing but the harvest of your thoughts. Train your focus like a warrior trains her weapon. Protect it, guard it, use it. Do not let distractions steal your destiny. The mind is a garden. If you don't plant flowers, the weeds will grow by default. Learn to quiet the noise. Learn to sit with yourself. If your mind is calm, your whole life becomes clear. What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. That is not poetry. That is physics of the spirit. You want to change your life? Start by mastering yourself. Because the world will always try to test your control through disrespect, through chaos, through temptation. But when you are in control of your mouth, your mood, your money and your mind, nothing owns you. Not fear, not people, not opinions, not circumstances. The greatest enemy of a woman is not the system, not even society. The greatest enemy is the part of her that believes she is not enough, not ready, not capable. The moment she stops believing that lie is the moment she becomes unstoppable. You do not have to become someone else to be powerful. You only need to become more of who you truly are, disciplined, focused, wise, and rooted. The world doesn't need louder women. It needs clearer women. Women who don't get swept up in every wave. Women who are the ocean itself. So now the question is not can you do it? The question is, are you done giving your power away? Because the woman who controls her words becomes a voice of truth. The woman who controls her emotions becomes a vessel of peace. The woman who controls her money becomes the architect of her freedom. And the woman who controls her mind becomes a force of nature. No one can stop her, not even time. You were never created to chase. You were born to command. And when you rise calm, clear, focused, and unshakable, the world will not ask what happened. It will ask who you are, and your presence will be the answer. Stay silent when they expect you to beg. Stay calm when they expect you to break. Stay focused when they expect you to fall apart. Because in the end, power is not what you show. Power is what you control. And the most powerful woman is the one who has mastered herself.